the age of Aquarius, though there's a lot of people still debating it, whether the exact date's happening, but we do have an overlapping period. And as a result of that is a lot of things are different. So the frequencies are definitely changing. And the result of that is people's behaviors are changing. And they're either moving up towards something really, really profound and good, or into reactivity. Having worked with people for 45 years, the shift started around 2015, according to my observation and the feedback I got from other therapists working in the field. Around 2013, 14, 15, it started to show that something is in the pipeline. And that's when anxiety went through the roof. Suddenly we had mental health disorders we did not have on that scale as we had then. We started to discover that there's something else going on, but we still operated as one unit in society. Then came 2019, the end of 2019, 2020, and then when the separation started. And suddenly family members were drifted apart, our friends were drifted apart, the vaccinated against the unvaccinated, the mandates, isolation. And then as a therapist, we observed a lot of struggle that people had with those who couldn't understand their view. So the vaccinated didn't understand how the unvaccinated don't want to get the shot, and the unvaccinated didn't understand why the vaccinated were brainwashed. And so the drift started. That actually didn't settle down. And according to my clinical observation, it actually went worse. And then mid last year, it became evident that something else is happening now also. So now we are in a brink where people describe that they can't stand certain people in their life anymore, and that they're having enormous problems with families, and they're having a drift with friends. So I don't have a day go by without someone telling me that their friends are not the same anymore. But there are a lot of factors going on. And this is what I want to share with you today. And in my presentation, I want to bring you into what is actually the energetic nature of all this. The Taoist, where everything originated from in terms of energy sciences, and the yogis have lots to offer. But then we are also very, very open to influences of galactic beings who also give us with a lot of ideas about what actually could go on. So putting it all together is an interesting experiment. So it looks like at this stage that we have two different realities occurring at the same time, and it's up to us individuals to actually make choice what we want to dial into. In this presentation today, I want to share with you what is actually the mechanics behind how to dial into this. And then when we are confronted with polarization in a family unit, or overpowering people, or people of different opinions that want to clash with us, then we got an idea how to actually proactively engage with that situation so we're not actually getting caught up. And as I take you through those main factors, I then bring it more and more to a practical application. When I see people using it, they actually do feel more at peace with that situation that we're in. It's all coming together. This is an unprecedented time as ever. So I'm going to share some facts with you, what we're dealing with. So this is all based on science. The equinox is a 26,000 year cycle, and the Earth axis wobbles very, very slowly, and it takes 25,700 years for the axis to complete one full wobble. And position of the sun moves backwards through the zodiac. So now we are leaving the age of Pisces and we're entering the age of Aquarius. So a lot of people would say that it was March 25 that we entered officially the age of Aquarius. With my observation from a chi practice perspective and the sensitivity developed over the decades, I'd say that is pretty much correct. Something changed in mid-year. However, then there's a Mayan calendar. I remember, many of us remember 2012 when things went really pear-shaped in terms of speculations, and then nothing happened. However, Mayan calendar is based on a 100,000-year cycle, and it's got 4 by 26,000-year cycle now completed. So we are actually entering the 5th Earth. So the Mayan calendar looks at this equinox via 4 circles, and we're now entering a totally new Earth, according to the Mayans. However, with the Mayan energy, it's around 12 years before it starts really hitting. And around 99, we could already sense that 2012 is approaching, because that was when a lot of fear around 2YK started and a lot of people getting unrested and didn't know where this is going to go. That was the first time when people started to realize, hang on, our life is very fragile. We see it can be shaken very, very quickly. Then 2012 hit, but it takes around 12 years, 12 and a half years for it to really to hit. And that's around a mid-year this year. So because it's all based on the 12 years that comes into for the energies to work. So around 99, it started, and then in 2024, it really sort of like start hitting, and now we really are into that, what the Mayans would call the 5th Earth, according to them. And then we got astrology, and when you look like the top astrologers of the world, there's lots of them, obviously, quite now by now. They all say we've got a most unique star constellation, and some of the star constellations go way back to 400,000 years. They haven't been like that. So we are now entering some kind of retrograde just about every day now. So that means something is constantly disappearing. So they're the cycles of the Earth that we're seeing with. So this is a bigger cosmic picture. Then we got the Schumann resonance, and we all heard so much about it. And if you don't, now you will know more what it's about. So the Schumann resonance suddenly is in the limelight of media everywhere. Like 10 years ago, no one spoke about it, or very few people. So it was developed by, or discovered, not developed, sorry. It was discovered by the physicist Otto Schumann in 1952. So he observed extremely low frequency electromagnetic resonance in the Earth atmosphere. But they're extremely low, so you actually can't sense them as such. And these are operating, this wave operate between the Earth's surface and ionosphere, which is 80 kilometers up. And this is like a big chamber, like a drum. And I like to call it the shamanic drum. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because for those of us who do Qigong practitioners are actually starting to notice this drum. So what happens is that the Earth between surface and the ionosphere, 18 kilometers up, what's happening is that lightning strikes, it then generates pulses. This then formate into standing waves, and that becomes a specific frequency. So the fundamental frequency is 7.83 hertz, but it can jump to 30 hertz. So that's the Earth's heartbeat. And people will meditate, obviously zone in with it. However, it's fluctuating due to solar flares. And 2024, it was when the measurements went wide. That means out of the original measurements around the low ultraviolet or red colors, it actually went so high that it was almost white. And so this is a value far above we've never seen before. Yeah. So then the next one is the solar flares. So solar flares go in 11-year cycles. And once again, this is very important for us who do meditation and things like that. And because what's happening is that we are now in solar cycle 25, and it started around 1770 when it was first discovered that the Earth goes in cycles. So it's 11-year cycle. That means it's 2019 was low, 2025 it's peaking. So when they call the flares, they are categorized as X-class flares. So in 2024, the sharp spike reached 54 X-class flares. So that was the record high since tracking the X-class validation since 1976. And it's still elevated right now, 20 X-class flares. So it's still high. What people all over the world report is fatigue, heart palpitation, but also heightened intuition. So you got to be aware that these solar flares enter this drum around the Earth, which is between the surface and the ionosphere. And then with these massive photon blasts that go in, they actually allow us to go in almost altered states. Now, on top of that, because we are at the equinox, 26,000 year cycle, and the 100,000 year cycle, because we're in the fifth Earth, because what happens is when we're reaching the equinox, the Earth receives more sun energy or photons. As it moves away, it has got lesser sun energy, which is why in the Veda philosophy, it's looked at the age of awakening. The more sun comes into you, the more we becoming realized about our true nature as star beings, but also as souls, because the energy coming from the sun, basically spirit energy. So because we are now at the equinox and we have the solar flares rising on a highest level so far, that means we got photon bursts entering us as never before, and they act on us. So they got a purpose, and I'm going to share that with you in later graphs, what that actually means in terms of how we can utilize this. Because the fact is, if we know how to harness it, it will elevate us, and if we then understand how to regulate it, we're actually developing the 5D body. However, those photon bursts, they intensify the split between 3D and 5D. So we really can see that we are operating already in a dual reality. The solar flares are well known to disrupt tech. And all of us understand that when the solar flares are big, my God, it can go mad in terms of your tech. However, it influences brain waves. That takes you into theta state. And that means you are now becoming aware about realities that before you would not, because it's like a dream. Which is why when you really zone in and you're really exposed to this massive solar flare, equinox, energetic that goes on at the moment, you actually feel like you're in an altered state. So where we live here in crystal waters, we're surrounded by nature, so we don't have any disruption by the mundane world. And I feel like many times I'm actually some kind of tripping, because it is so much incredible theta brainwave entrainment happening, and that you just start seeing things that before they were not possible, because in dream states you are able to teleport to all different dimensions and realities. And that's why a lot of people get very intuitive. And that's, for example, I and many of the people I work with also sense the presence of extraterrestrial beings that are already around us, but operating in a slightly different frequency. But if you're entrained by the theta brainwaves, you actually can sense them. So this is actually a very interesting time in that regard. So that's why in the spiritual tradition, the solar flares symbolize the collective upgrades. We've got to also acknowledge that there is 3 Ayatlas, that no one knows what's going on with that thing. And so it seems to impact on people. I talk to a lot of therapists. I got my chat lines. I communicate with people who work with a lot of people. They all say since that comet appeared, they feel like something is happening in them. I sometimes feel like I'm making contact with it, and a lot of people can relate to it. However, it could be also possible that we make it up. So we need to be aware of it, that it can also actually act on our belief system. However, there's something not quite ordinary about that comet, because it appears to be stopping and changing directions and changing pace. So according to distant view and people clairvoyants who are able to make contact with it, they would say it's a transmitter transformer station for DNA upgrades, because our DNA only has 5% of that is online at the moment. 95% of our DNA is not online. And calling it junk DNA, as Western medicine does, is obviously not correct. So we are facing a fact that some aspects of our DNA is coming online. And that means new abilities become available, and also new skills are required in order to adapt it. So it will force a totally new way of living if this is all going by plan, the way we perceive it. Because as a result of those DNA upgrades, if this new information comes online, means from the DNA, then we need new jobs and we need new skills. So we need new guidance. So it will open up to a totally new world in terms of what we need to work with. And so that's why, from my perspective, I see an incredible optimism to the future, because a lot of the jobs of the old are simply dying. However, once you get into the new, you're discovering a whole new horizon of job possibilities and opportunities. And however, in order to deal with that, we need to understand intelligence, because we are now at a time where our three different intelligences act on us, and this gives us the opportunity to evolve on a level that previously we could not do. And have a look at that. A system to perceive, to model, to predict, and creatively adapt to the new environment in order to reduce uncertainty. So a new form of intelligence is required now in order to actually dial into the 5D, in order to deal with the clashes that we're experiencing on a social level, but also in order to feel happy and healthy. Because if we understand how to work with that intelligence, then we are creating something new. So the first intelligence that we obviously deal with is AI. In a nutshell, these are massive pattern recognition in data. It's an information processing, goal-directed optimization, and adaptive feedback loops. So that's what the A is, because we suddenly are confronted with AI, and it suddenly appeared, and boom, and we are faced with it now, what to do with that. However, when it comes to here, this new age, the Aquarian age, we're looking at three intelligences, not only AI. So B is BI. So AI requires BI, and BI is biological intelligence. And this is the fascia piezoelectricity. I will talk more about it later. But basically what it means is the fascia between muscle and skin is where the meridians operate and transmit information. However, it is via photon burst and photon transmission and photo emission that actually that energy is moving along that fascia. In there are crystals, silica crystals and other crystals. And with certain techniques, such as compression and other methods, which are outlined later, you're actually creating a piezoelectric effect. A piezoelectric effect, what it means is, if you apply pressure on a crystal, the energy that's stored in the crystal gets released. And as a result of that, is heat gets emitted. However, the crystal now acts on the next crystal, and now you start getting a flow. And so you've got to look at your fascia having many different crystals. And there's one idea saying our meridians is nothing else an arrangement of crystals. And then when you put a compression on those crystals, either via breath work, meditation, Tai Chi, acupuncture, etc., what happens is you evoke the crystals in there to release the information, and then it actually will act on the next crystal and you will have a flow happening. However, we are now under the massive bombardment of photon burst. A lot of information is coming to us. Photon is light energy, that it stores information of a higher source. It's divine. And now, as we have this massive photon burst acting on us, they then automatically are also acting on the crystals in our fascia. So now they either are obstructing the energy flow, and that means you actually getting angry, bitter, resentment, and feel separated and feel everyone is everyone else's fault, and you go very much into 3D, separation, anger, emotions. Or if you allow the energy to actually, that is now stored in the fascia, to actually act on each of those crystals in the fascia, you will actually now induce a flow. And that means in that moment, you're getting a lot of divine energies rushing through your system. And in that moment, you see only good and love and unity in others. So that's how you activate the 5D body. This is what I said before. Biological intelligence relates to the junk DNA. And clairvoyants use the term certain information on the DNA gets online. So that's a term that they're using, and I'm using also now because it makes a lot of sense. That means there is an intelligence in us that now can get activated and gets online. And so once again, we need to obviously find ways how to open up to it. And the fascia with the piezoelectricity can act on the DNA. However, the DNA, according to biophysicists, is now considered as a fractal antenna. That means it actually receives information from cosmic sources. It can store it and can direct it to parts of the body that are essential for your elevation and therefore improving your life. So that will then also actually put online information that before that laid dormant. And the third part of the biological intelligence is the morphogenetic field. And Rupert Sheldrake coined that term. But what it's relating to very profoundly is that when a cell produces a protein, in that production is not the shape. The shape is dependent on a field around it. So there's an intelligence around the protein synthesis that creates the field, that creates the shape. So basically the protein synthesis in an arm is the same as in the leg. However, it's a different part of the body. And that's because of the field. So that field that people in the 60s and 70s started to talk about it, suddenly in 2025 now becomes like full focus, because we are so under the influence of photon burst that it inspires people to act on it. Then with the massive pattern recognition in data from AI, information processing, goal-directed optimization, and adaptive feedback loops, you can actually create equations in relation to biological intelligence that actually allows you to understand how the body functions on a way we never could. So suddenly, fascia piezoelectricity is in full frontal focus with physicists, but also the morphogenetic field suddenly comes on board. Interesting thing is that the development of AI took about the same time when biologists discovered and talked about the idea of the morphogenetic field and piezoelectricity. And one of the physicists, James Oshman, he wrote that famous book, Energy Medicine, in 2000, and he already talked about it. And he said, in 30 years, the main medicine will be energetic, where we understand how to regulate the energy in the field. And this will be influenced by outside sources, cosmic influences, and that we at this stage couldn't foresee, but now it's all happening. Because if you put the photon blast on top of what we know about fascia piezoelectricity and morphogenetic field, you can go a long, 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 long way. And then the ABC, the third one, is CI, cosmic intelligence. And the cosmic intelligence is primary, that's the Tao. The Tao in Chinese medicine is not God. It's the intelligence that rules the whole world, the whole cosmic. And that is captured by the Tai Chi or the alchemy. The Tai Chi in Chinese medicine is the supreme ultimate. So not the Tai Chi, the modality, either the form. I'm talking about how yin and yang act on each other. Because cosmic intelligence, according to that view, is one big sexual union of yin and yang. So the whole universe is in fact one orgasm. And as a result of that is you have this big bang virtually. And so as a result of that is, in that formation is an information that allowed that void to occur. And due to the interaction of yin and yang, we have access to that cosmic information. And that's alchemy. And these are the organ spirits, which I talk about it in a little while. So now we are confronted with all those intelligences, and we can see that we are on the brink of something awesome if we're going to put it all together. However, there is a massive consequence of all that, because everything that's coming together now also has a consequence. And this is what the bifurcation process is about. So in case you haven't heard of it, this is where you will be introduced to it. It's a splitting of collective timelines. So it's a frequency band or states of consciousness. A bifurcation basically means a river comes to an end and then splits into two rivers. Or a system gets disrupted and then collapses into two systems. The reason why we use that term is because it reflects this distinctive evolutionary trajectory that's now emerging. What we're experiencing that at the moment is a split in vibrational reality processing. And that's exactly what I see as a therapist, that there is a vibrational shift happening. And as I said before, some people dial into 5D, other people dial into 3D. Some people dial into the love and the cosmic frequency that are available. They utilize the photon burst. Other people make those photon bursts obstruct the energy flow and go into lots and lots of anger. So you'll see that if you have a social media feed of polarizing people and friends, you see that some people get more and more angry and really, really angry, and other people get more and more loving and really unifying. So we have never seen that before on that level. And obviously we are at the beginning of it, but the fact is both parties see the reality correct. A really good friend of mine for 30 years, we know each other for so long. So he's totally believing that we're moving into a dark age, that everything is crashing. He totally believes it. And he gives me evidence all the time. He thinks I'm completely, totally loopy, I'm losing the plot. And he constantly shows me evidence that life is getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and that going to have a nuclear war and the earth will be completely destroyed. Whereas other people, very good close friends of mine, constantly show me the evidence how much we're moving towards love and unified field. So and that's what I mean. At the moment we are coexisting. So obviously, what do you do when you are in a family meeting with those polarizing views where you believe it's 5D and the other person has got all the evidence for it to be 3D? So the fact is, at this stage, both realities coexist. We don't know for how long, because according to Bashar, eventually it will split into everyone have their own room. We only can go with what we got right now. And the fact is that we got a bifurcation process, and that means there's a vibrational reality processing going on. Yeah. So timeline is the consciousness-based concept tied to vibration, free will, and elevation. We need to decide what we want to dial into. So dial either into 3D or 5D. The symptoms that we're experiencing as this bifurcation process worldwide is that people say a sudden clarity about what is no longer aligned. You just suddenly realize this is what I'm doing is not me anymore. Loss of resonance with old friendships, careers, and habits. So that means suddenly old friendships and careers, they don't resonate anymore. Old habits don't resonate. Heightened intuition, synchronicities, and symbolic dreams, that is very profound with a lot of the clients I work with. They just get this heightened intuition. They suddenly see things and they're experiencing synchronicities, which is classic for theta brainwave states, but also the symbolic dreams. And some people even feel, boom, lifted or separated from old patterns. That I see now on a daily basis in sessions. People, for example, people were smoking cigarettes, like 5, 10, maybe 15 cigarettes a day. And from one day to the next, they didn't smoke anymore. Or they were drinking wine, 2, 3 glasses a night. Not a problem, but 2 glasses every night as a habit. And suddenly next day, don't drink anymore. And other habits like that, suddenly people can't eat meat anymore. I see that often in clinic that it's like, wow, every time I eat red meat, it makes me heavy. I can't eat it. So all these patterns are shifted suddenly. That's the bifurcation process is, boom, you're suddenly in a totally different fork. However, it's also waves of emotional detox, because light body activation or inner rewiring means you're releasing all the emotions that are stored in the crystal. And that can get quite dramatic. That's why this path can also get enormously emotional and dramatic. However, you don't want to go into the 3D. You've seen enough to know that the 5D exists, but it's still an emotional detox. As a result of that bifurcation process, we have soul fatigue. So that's a term that a lot of therapists are using worldwide. And what it basically means is it's not a burnout, but it's a bone-tired ache. So you can't lift that with coffee. You can't lift that with sleeping longer. It's just like it feels the same over and over, because what's happening is the essence or the kidney gene is recalibrating to hold more light. The photon blasts now want to be stored. And kidney energy, the kidney which is responsible for energy, now actually has to reset itself. And that means it's not providing energy for your day-to-day life. And you suddenly feel this bone-tired ache, and you're tired, and you're trying to write something, and you feel like you want to sleep, but you can't actually control that with sleep, more sleep. It's just, you feel like exactly the same. The symptom that people describe is numbness, emotional fog, lack of motivation, but lack of joy is the main one that people suddenly, because you struggle to remain anchored in a world that's out of sync with your resonance, with your vibration. So you can't actually see that world anymore as in resonance with you, and that makes you more and more tired. You're not getting a reflection back that inspires you when you look at the world around you. So you need to obviously look at the way, okay, how can I dial into the 5D? And you see the new world, and that inspires you, and then more techniques to bring in the photon blast to utilize effectively, and bang, you got the joy factor. Soul fatigue is an exhaustion from shedding the past, because in order to move to the next, we need to let go of the past, and there's a grief process that comes with it. However, the most important factor that seems to be, like everyone's saying, that intolerance for small talk. You just can't have small talk. Like, it's not possible. So if you go to functions and there's small talk going on, it just aggravates you. You just want to go for the hills. You want to race. You're just like, this is just not right. Because when you look at the photon blast, the way it comes in is via the meridian field. This is where it goes in. And from the meridian field first, it then goes on to the body. And that's your endocrine system in particular, where it's acting on. So if you have free access between the photons that's blasting your meridians and your physical body, the endocrine system, you're actually dialing effectively into the 5D, and you are able to actually see the benefit of this, that change that we're going through now. And that takes us to the 5 spirits. The 5 spirits is where the Taoist view comes into. That's internal alchemy. And that is way back 3,000 years, 4,000 years, 5,000 years. And even then, it predates everything in our human calendar capacity. And it's most likely directly challenged to the Taoist via Syrian extraterrestrial or Pleiadians. So when I look at the Taoist philosophy, it's very, very closely linked to what we know from channeled information from the Pleiadians and the Syrians. So you could say the 5 spirits, its origin in the Taoist philosophy, its origin, once again, is probably like 1 million years or even longer. But it understands how the manifestation process works while being exposed to either 3-dimensional world, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional, and above, right up to the 9th dimensional world. And the 5 spirits all the way through take you in it because they are instrumental for bringing in the energy that is required for you to create the new body or the new level. And the first element I work with is the water element. And the spirit of the water is power, or kilowatts, like an engine. That's your power. So the spirit of the kidney, of the water element, is power. And the kidney receives the photon blast. So people who do Qigong training, they receive it via the Dantian, which is your kidney energy, and then distribute it all throughout the body. And I'll show that in a little bit later how that works. But for this stage, the 5 spirits of the 5 elements, as the water is the power. The wood element affiliated with the liver, the spirit of the wood element is act and retreat. And obviously that spirit is essential for when you are in a social environment and you are confronted with people of the 3D versus 5D, and you are clashing in with people who have got like a very strong opinionated view on that life is going worse and worse and worse, whereas you have the evidence also that shows life's getting better and better and better and better, and that someone else has got a totally different idea again. So how do you regulate that? And the more you are in tune with your spirit of the liver, the more you understand to either act or retreat. And that is what regulated via yin and yang. So when you're exposed to a strong view of someone who believes the world is getting worse, and you know it's not, you're then obviously acting on, okay, retreat. And you're going to the very specific yin mode, which comes from practice that are essential, because when you look at the wood, it actually directs the photon blast. So with the technique that I outline in a minute, you can actually learn how to direct the photon blast. So 20 years ago, it was not really that much of an issue when you were directed with people of different opinions, because there were not that many photon blasts acting on your meridians and on your liver to act or to retreat. So now it's just like, can make you angry straight away when you feel like someone has got an opinion that completely does not validate your view on the life. So who's right and who's wrong? And obviously at this stage, both realities coexist because we are in the bifurcation process. So we need to accept that both views are correct. So one person sees that view of the world getting worse. Yeah, it's correct. Because if you buy more and more into it, you make it happen. And whereas those who make the choice to utilize the photon blast, then obviously they are moved towards love and union. However, with this massive influx of photon blasts, it gets very difficult to stay calm when you're confronted with, especially if there's family members who are just trying to convince you about a view of life that has nothing to do with your understanding. So what do you do? And that's obviously where the liver chi comes into, and that then allows us to direct the photon blast. The fire element, it's a fire in the heart, and the spirit of the fire is truth. So that means if the photon blasts are utilized effectively, you actually have a perception of truth. And that means the fire element, or the spirit of the fire, actually converts the photon blast into truth. So that means it will operate at this stage for both people. Anyway, so you dial into the 5D, the spirit of the fire will make you move towards the 5D, and you will experience the vibrational frequency of the 5D via the heart. The earth element, the spirit of the earth is caring. So that's where we care. And what the earth element does in this time right now, it contains the photon blast. And then we got the metal, And the spirit of the metal is control. And control means it compresses the photon blast. So any one of us who has done some kind of Qigong practice, inner alchemy, will relate to that very, very well, because this is exactly what we do. So we draw in the Qi, and then we take it through the 5 elements in order to, first of all, we receive it, the Qi, which is the photon blast, then we direct it, then we convert it, then we contain it, and then we compress it, and then we just receive more. So as you receive the photon blast via the kidney, you direct it, it converts it into the truth, it then gets contained via the earth because the earth stores, then the metal compresses it, and now it's even deeper in, and now you can go to the next level. So that's how you build the 5D body more and more and more. And so now I'm going to take the practical steps more and look at it from the factor, okay, where is this all happening now in terms of biological intelligence and cosmic intelligence? So as I mentioned before, biological intelligence is fascia, piezoelectricity, DNA, and the morphogenetic field. So back to the definition of intelligence, the capacity of a system to perceive, to model, to predict and creatively adapt to its environment in order to reduce uncertainty and achieve desired outcomes. That's what it is. That's intelligence. So, and once again, I go through the A, B, C, D. So I start with A, and in order to instigate biological intelligence, acupuncture is the number 1 in that regard. Why is that? Acupuncture does not come from China. It predates China. So it was used in Atlantis. It was used in Lumera. It was used in the Pleiadians talk about acupuncture very, very highly. The Syrians talk about acupuncture very highly. Obviously, they would call it a slightly different name, but it's about using the points on the meridians that are instrumental to connect to all the other crystals in your body and then creating a flow. So as you are exposed to a lot of photon blast and then open up certain points, you allow that flow to happen, so massive light energies come in. And it could be possible that we're using incredible acupuncture treatments in the pyramids, like because the pyramids were built by the Syrian intelligence, according to the channels and the psychics. So these come from a 6-dimensional star formation, and they built those pyramids in order to receive energies that they required from the 6-dimensional realm in order to operate here in this 3-dimensional realm, because otherwise they're obviously getting too dense. And and I noted that when I work with people in acupuncture, if the person is receptive to higher energies, what happens is the photon blast coming in, and then the person feels lifted. However, this is very, very important. For example, in my sessions, when I work with people, I always identify via counseling what goes on first. And you get down mentally to a certain degree, but then you hand over to the points of the body, and you allow the meridians to be opened up to flow, and boom, suddenly an understanding comes forward that previously was not there. And suddenly the person is, when you look at the definition of intelligence, the body and the person is able to perceive, to model, and creatively adapt to its environment in order to reduce uncertainty and achieve desired outcomes. So that's why those treatments are crucial at this time. And so, I see this all the time, and people really are stuck how acupuncture or opening up the meridians with any other forms, doesn't need to be the needle, can be any other forms, and bang, information comes in that allows them to perceive, to model, and to predict, and to creatively adapt to the changing situation. All right, B. B stands for bodywork. Bodywork is in line with acupuncture in terms of the piezoelectricity. Once again, Pleiadians and Therian intelligence looks at it very highly and recommends everyone right now to get as much bodywork as possible, because when you get massage, deep tissue massage, etc., you actually release the energies that hold you back, and you allow new energies to come in. So this was already understood way back in 1920 when Wilhelm Reich got into the first understanding of working on the fascia of the body to release emotions that he couldn't touch with counseling. And that moved him away from Sigmund Freud, where he realized you need to work with the intelligence of the body to release all that information. And that is otherwise not accessible. So he was doing in 5-6 sessions of deep tissue massage that Freud would have taken 30 years. And so I've seen this in clinic, in sessions with people over and over, how people with good body work release the past so fast. And then with the models given to them in order to receive the new, they elevate to the next level and by accelerating their path. It works profound. So C stands for cellular regeneration supplements. All right, now we can go into orthomolecular therapy, which is first postulated by Nicholas Pauling way back in the 1960s. So having worked with supplements myself for over 40 years, it's absolutely profound what it does. But in terms to unleash the information in the DNA in order to put certain information online, in order to release the intelligence in the fascia, supplements are crucial right now. M&M, the nicotinamide mononucleotide, are obviously the number one. And if you go to the health food shop and buy that, you will see it does something. CoQ10, obviously, it opens up the fascia and the crystals. Curcumin opens up on the crystal. Obviously, everything's based on oxidation and antioxidants. So if the tissue is oxidized, the crystals can't communicate with each other. The photon blast cause stagnation and ill health rather than leading to health. So astragalus, Chinese medicine, herb, opens up the flow. And then magnesium. And we're talking like 500 milligrams a day. Then obviously vitamin C and by B12. For example, we saw that back in the day when I was working in drug recovery, how opioid overuse and morphine, heroin blocked the energy flow and people had massive cold turkeys. But if you give them 60 grams to 80 grams of vitamin C, they can actually withdraw without any side effects. So that's based on the fact that the vitamin C opens up the crystalline arrangement in the fascia and induces a piezoelectricity in order to release crystal store and allow light to move through your body. And the same applies to vitamin B12. So if you're not eating meat anymore because you can't, then look at B12 as part of it. However, this is a very general. I experiment, obviously, with all this French stuff that you never hear of. And one of the most powerful, I unfortunately don't want to talk too much about it because you can't get that in the shops. It's called Acea. And it's, in my regard, in my view, in my experimentation, I've been experimenting with this for 15 years. It's one of the most powerful. However, you need someone to sponsor you. So I keep very quiet about it because I do not sign anyone up. Unfortunately, it's network marketing, but the product is absolutely profound. So in case you want to explore that, and I'm non-biased because I'm not signing up anyone. So if you want to make a note of that and check it out on the internet. And then obviously D is diet. If you want to dial into 5D, certain foods you can't eat anymore. That's a fact. And so the foods we can't eat are the foods that make you heavy. There are too many guidelines to go by to make it as a universal. So therefore, the measurement to go by is observe the food. If it makes you heavy, don't eat it. If it makes you feel good, it's good. If it makes you light, great. If it makes you off-grounded, then add a little bit of the food that makes you heavy. So you're constantly moving towards the higher, the lighter. And if you get too off-grounded, go a little bit back to what makes you heavy. And then sort of like forwards, backwards. For example, if you can't eat red meat anymore because it makes you heavy, experiment with lentils, beans, and all the vegan diet. But if you get too off-grounded, then immediately add red meat. It puts you back down again. And then you have a few days getting light again, and then red meat a little bit. Or you start feeling you can replace the red meat with chicken. You actually ground yourself with the more denser protein. According to my observation, if you dial into the 5D and you're using those methods I'm sharing with you, then you can go very well towards like vegetarian diet very quickly. But you need to know how to work with that. And the only measurement to go by is how you feel. If you feel off-grounded, you're going too fast. If you feel too dense and heavy, you're not acting fast enough. You need to find it out yourself. Every Taoist master will tell you, you need to find out for yourself. And so when I work in clinic with people in sessions, I always work it out how it feels to them. And then according to pulse diagnostic and tongue diagnostic, I go into in order to adapt it a bit. And then E for exercise. The reason why we need to work with exercise, because this is the fact that exercise unleashes information in your body that previously you did not access. So if you talk to top orthopedic surgeons, they will tell you that. If you talk to all the top chiropractors, everyone will tell you, if you got any kinds of pains and aches or difficulties, as soon as you start exercising, certain exercises, it will improve it. But how is a mystery, because the exercise seems to act on the fascia where the piezoelectricity is induced, and then via the morphogenetic field releases information in order to work forward. There's different forms of exercises. It needs to have, once again, the aspect between yin and yang. It needs to have part of yin and yang. Got to be vigorous, but not too vigorous. And it got to be relaxed, but not too relaxed. Yin and yang. If you work with resistant bands like TRX, they are very good because you can adjust them according to. And if you're working with heavy weights, it can actually stop dialing you into the 5D and then anchor you in the 3D. But if you don't do work with your muscle contraction, then you can't release the information in the muscle tissue that actually allows you to move towards the 5D. So very, very tricky to work that out. And once again, I can do a whole webinar just on that and the 5D exercises. And I've got a whole list of exercises I can share, which I explored in all those decades and working with people. So that's a biological intelligence. And then we got cosmic intelligence. The Tao, Supreme Ultimate, Tai Chi, Organ Spirits. Okay, A, alchemical meditation. That's the heart of the Taoist. The Nidan, the internal alchemy. They are also referred to as energy orgasm practices. Why orgasms? As the Pleiadians always talk about it, orgasms allow photons to enter the body. And the more orgasmic your interaction with life and your body is, the more photons come in according to them. Barbara Ann Brennan, in that famous book, Hands of Light, talked about how orgasms open up the chakras and allowed light energies or photons to enter the body. So that book was written in 1998 when no one even was exposed to the idea of a photon blast. So orgasms are obviously given to us for a reason, in order for the photons to come in. And the more we understand how to work with the principle of orgasms, the more photons come in. So this is once again a tricky topic, because if it's not used correctly, then it depletes you. If it's used correctly, then it builds you. And so this is where, once again, the Taoists would say, you've got to find out for yourself. There are so many different recommendations. Go with how you feel. If orgasms deplete you, you need to reduce the number of orgasms. If you don't have any orgasms, you feel something's not right because you're not getting enough photon, then enhance the ratio of orgasms. And that then leads to the cultivation of Jing to Qi to Shen. And these are the 5 spirits, because Jing is where the photon blast gets received, then they get converted into free-flowing energy, and then into spirit, which is that's your 5D body. So it starts with your base chakra by receiving it, and then the pulses, waves move up via chi flow, and then converts into your soul body or 5D body. Don't rush these techniques, because if you go too fast with those techniques, it will cause havoc. Sometimes that's how we learn. Yeah. Anyway, those techniques are crucial for anyone wanting to get into dialing to the 5D body. We need to know about alchemical meditations. And so there's lots of people who offer that now, because this is now the entering of the new age, and a lot of people offer it. B, stands for breath work. So breath work, because everything starts with breath and everything finishes with breath, in between breath is your spirit body. And that's what Buddha said. In between the breath is God. So the Buddha mind is in between breath. And in between breath is where you have the ability to act or retreat, because that regulates immediately your liver chi, the spirit of the liver, when you're confronted with people that aggravate you. So with the breathwork discipline, you have the ability to harness the photon blast. And breathwork is a means, when you breathe in and out, what you're bringing in is the prana. But with that prana, you're actually storing the photons also. And as you now go into the depending on what technique you follow, but you will actually learning how to utilize the breath, and then you're learning how to regulate it. And that then means when you are confronted in a highly volatile emotional situation, it is the breath work via the liver holding you in a state where you are yin and calm rather than reactive or retreat and suppress. So it's profound. And C stands for Qigong. And I'll talk that about in a minute, because Qigong is absolutely the key for all Taoist practices in order to receive the photon blast, in order to convert them via Jing Qi Chen into the spirit body or 5D body. And D stands, and that's very important, deep vocal techniques. When you work with masters, you learn to take your voice and you drive the energy into your dantian, into your belly. So that's in alchemical meditation. We use the humming in order to draw the energy. We pack it into the dantian. So these are humming and chanting that is always, first of all, bring it into the lower part. Just like Tibetan Buddhists, like really bring it deep in. Or the Australian Aborigines with that didgeridoo, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. And then you're able to move it up via intensive energetic releases. So this is where Krishna plays the flute. So after having compressed it, then releases it via ecstatic experience. So that's where the compression and the ecstatic release is, first of all via and then the expression via the ecstatic flute practice. So that's where both instruments are crucial. And when you look at Tibetan Buddhists, they always got the low vibe and then they got the high vibe, the low frequency and the high frequency. And then you work with the low frequency and then bring it up to the high frequency. So the big trombones, and then the flutists bring it up to God. In there you have the 5 organ tones. So that's the musical scale of the cosmic intelligence, which would be resembled the black keys on the piano. Why is it so profound? Because the black keys on a piano can be both. And that's like exactly 5D. So if it's like the black key between F and G, can be either F sharp or G flat. So that means you are actually dual. You actually are in a unified field. And so jazz music works with only the black keys, primarily because for you to decide where you want to be. And so the more intelligent the music gets, the more you move into those tones, you work with those tones that allow you to be in both states at once. And so this is where the organs come into play. And so each organ, which is affiliated with one of the 5 spirits, has got a musical tone as an accord. So, for example, the liver would be that black key between F and G, and then the heart would be between C and D. And so that's what Johann Sebastian Bach primarily worked with that tone in between C and D. Beethoven worked with a lot of those progressions where it was taking you always to the new, but always was destroying it first also in order to get you to the ground and then taking it somewhere new. So in the Taoist philosophy, we have a very similar view in that we constantly work with the destruction. That means we compress it and then, boom, bring it up again. But that is done by you deciding where you take this. So that means it's the same with timelines. You decide where you go, and that's quantum physics. Schrödinger's equation means the cat is both alive and dead. And that means both realities coexist, 3D, 5D. You make the choice, you decide where you are. So that's how you work with those stones. Once again, once you start experimenting with it, it opens up a world that is absolutely profound. And now it all blends in with everything we said before. So this is the oldest posture in China. No one knows exactly how long it's been used for. Some scholars say it's been used since Master Yu and Master Wu and around 18,000 years ago. But the fact is, if you learn the technique, which is very simple, it never stops, amazes you, because it will always take you to the new. So the posture is very straightforward. So it's like hugging a tree. It's called standing pole qigong. There are various different variations of it. Some people have the arms a bit lower. That's why one photo is, in this photo, the arms are higher and this one's a bit lower. So everyone's got different ideas about it. So you, once again, go with how it feels best. Experiment, experiment, experiment. And so, however, the principle is it's got to be a line from your midline of your feet right up to the midline of your head. And here are the 3 points that lead you to developing of the 5D body: the Jing, the Qi, the Shen. These are the 3 treasures. The 3 treasures are, in fact, what builds the 5D. And that then, once you are in that posture, you will go automatically from the physical body or the endocrine field into the energy field. You will have an instant change in your body, in your perception of life, and you're suddenly entering a new realm, because it is, in fact, multidimensionality. So once you align that body, you align with so many forces that will allow you to now perceive yourself as a multidimensional being, or as what is the term right now is called MD. I'm an MD, multidimensional. And so the longer you do that, after about 10 minutes, you can feel the physical body is now shifting into the energy body. And now you start activating the 3 parts of the body. All that will come natural by doing the posture. And then after a while, you can feel it's making you very, very solid. And that is now the 5D body. Yeah. So I look at it again. So you activate the 3 points, Jing. Just by standing like that, by sinking the energy into your body, you will start seeing the compression in the kidney, or water will start now acting via the Qi to become the flow in the heart, and then takes it to your soul body. And then you will notice that there are circles all throughout your body. And these are the laws that act on you. And these are now act on your body. And the Merkaba idea is based on that. And this is all developing the light body, basically. Because each of those circles now actually storing the photon blast and acting on your body. And the way they act on it is, first of all, by screwing yourself into your body, you feel like you're getting more and more compressed into your body. Like what I talked about, the toning, you go deep first. So you can feel the spirals, and it goes more and more into your body, sinks you in. Then you can feel the ecstatic rise. And that's why the DNA activation. And now you're putting online aspects of your DNA that before that was not possible. And that's your 5D body. So that's what you're looking at, is your 5D. And as you can see in the arrows, you look at both realities at once, but you are fully protected. So when you go to a family gathering and you have polar views, you are fully anchored in your own truth by having the spiral force grounding you. But at the same time, you are elevated towards your spirit body or 5D body via the DNA and the fractal antenna of the DNA receiving the photons. However, there's a big field around you, and this is where the photon blast now actually makes your body stronger and healthier. And as a result of that is you feel more love, you feel more centering, you feel more grounding. As a result of that is you're not really concerned about people having different ideas.